Дякую, пане Михайло. Вам слово.
Yeah. Dobry ranok, szanowni drudzy. Thank you for inviting me today. And this field is on the North Sea island of Sylt, so in northern Germany, but also it is very far away. I took it deliberately when the sky was about to be a bit blue, so that it fitted for that purpose. Always when there is something with Ukraine and it's a Zoom activity, I try to have it in the background. Now, first of all, thank you very much to the Hanns Seidel Foundation, who is facilitating this, Herr Bobbe in Kiev, and greetings to Ihor Zhaloba, the president of Pan-Europa Ukraine. I can also convey the wishes from Bernd Posselt and all the friends from Pan-Europa Germany. I'm one of the vice presidents of the Pan-Europa Union, and insofar I'm glad to be among you. And I'm also the standing rapporteur in the European Parliament on Ukraine in the Foreign Affairs Committee. So we are, I'm dealing almost on a daily basis with Ukrainian issues. And I am happy to say that 2 weeks ago, I was also together with 6 other colleagues in Kiev for the 30th anniversary of the independence of Ukraine, or shall I say the rebirth of Ukraine as a independent nation. And we were also attending the launch of the Crimea platform, and afterwards visiting, apart from Kiev, also we had a stopover in Zaporizhia, and then continuing to Mariupol, and also going to Shirokine to demonstrate that we are aware of the continuous threat that comes from Russia and its well, how shall I put them? Its allies is too much of an honor. It's those people who work on their behalf to destabilize Ukraine. So that is the latest developments. And indeed, as you said in your introduction, I am among all those colleagues who are very staunch supporters, not only of the independence of Ukraine, but also of the path that Ukraine has chosen to have a European track. And insofar, we support all those who are the real reformers in the need that is needed to transform the country to a functioning, I say sometimes, a boring, normal European democracy. When everything functions well, it may tend to become boring, but you are not yet in the phase that everything is boring. But it is exciting, and it is a continuous challenge to get this country further to functioning in a way that the citizens perceive it as their home, regardless what their political and linguistic background is. This Ukraine must develop and will develop, we are quite confident, towards becoming this strong and stable and large European country to which at some point, and we in the parliament, we would support it, at some point really gets the concrete accession perspective. We are by no means there yet, but you know what needs to be done. And we, as not only as Parliament, but all those who deal with Ukraine in the European Commission and in many of our member states, are very keen to be helpful and supportive, both for the internal development, but also to continue to send very clear messages to Russia to refrain and stop destabilization and all their illegal activities that they are pursuing. We are aware of that. You are aware of that. So they cannot clandestinely continue that without getting unnoticed. But we are strongly supporting all your efforts to push such attempts back. And we will, through our attendance of the Crimea platform, we have once again underlined that we will never, ever recognize the illegal occupation and annexation of Crimea, and we will insist to demand the liberation and the making the occupied parts in the Donbas free for the citizens who live there and who want to return to their home states. So that is the big perspective. But when it comes to the, so to say, to the daily businesses that are necessary in the reform process, there is a huge agenda, and you're aware of that. You know what is going well, what is not going well. We all know that the path that the country has pursued since the Revolution of Dignity is huge, and you can be congratulated to the achievements, to the way to overcome the Soviet heritage of administering the country, the fact that those who are still the oligarchs and who have their influence, that they know that they are in a defensive position. They cannot simply act as it was in the old regime to be sure that all their action for their private, to instrumentalize public authority for their private businesses and their private purposes. That is not possible anymore. That will not get unnoticed. And where it happens, it will face severe resistance from other parties, from media, from the civil society, so that those old forces who still think they can do it the old way, that they are under constant pressure, and that there is transparency towards what they are doing. I think that is the way forward to guarantee that the reform path that has started since 2014 is thoroughly pursued. And in this regard, there are steps ahead and steps backward. And when you go through the different areas, we have to name it. I mean, you have had a very successful decentralization process. Decentralization, one thing; amalgamation of local communities is another thing. And there we see, I think, already the difference. When the gromadas that are functioning well and that are administering the money that they now have extra, when they are administering it well, people notice there is a difference. And there are others who are not delivering so well. I think that is a very good way of showing how one can be better in delivering services to the people. But when there are discussions at the same time to install a prefect system, so to say, to reinstate the power vertical to an extent, I think that should be not the way to handle it, at least not in a way that that these prefects, that they try to be in competition with those who have their responsibilities on the ground. They can supervise that things go the right way, but they should not interfere in the daily decisions of the gromadas, and thereby also make it doubtful where the real competencies are. I think I'm aware, of course, if we look at the election results of Sluga Narodu, they were elected with the president into the Verkhovna Rada, but on the local level, they don't have this much ground. And as a consequence, their performance in local elections wasn't that great. It's a bit the Macron effect in France, you know, President Macron beautifully elected as a president, and afterwards an outright majority from 0 to absolute majority in the national parliament, but in the local elections they are performing badly or not at all. So that is a natural effect if a party is not formed around a program but around a person, that you cannot at the same time have that effect on all levels. But the consequence should not be to bypass the decentralization by setting up power verticals in the old way, I would say. There's one aspect. There are other aspects where we see that the reforms are well challenged when the public authority, when it is about the good system that ProZorro, as an example, established for public procurement, when exceptions are granted, therefore. Yeah, it should be for large scale projects. There cannot be an exception for this public procurement through the ProZorro system, because there are loopholes existing where the old structures and old influential people would like to make their profit in this regard. So I'm calling on you, the young people, to have a very close eye on such development. Or when it's about the health reform, which is essential for the feeling of the people: when I'm sick, I will get help regardless what my income is. When I'm sick, I'm getting help and I don't have to bribe the doctor. And the health reform that was already installed by the previous government with the first phase for the family doctors, there is a very important principle. Money follows the patient. That means the doctor will receive money for the treatment of a concrete patient. And the same should apply also one level higher in the hospitals. And there will still be enough money for all those private hospitals and people who have the private sector. They should not be afraid, but they should not try to derail a process in the health sector that would really give access to all people to the treatment that they need. There are issues with regard to the anti-corruption bodies that have been set up. We have got, fortunately, the High Anti-Corruption Court. We have got, fortunately, NABU, and we have got ZAPO. And in this regard, there are procedures should be followed that guarantee that in these anti-corruption bodies, through nomination processes, you don't get the wrong people in. And I think that is also something essential to be watched and to be followed, in order to avoid that this necessary process is getting stuck, and again the wrong ones are gaining ground. So the purpose of how NABU was set up, or SAPO, there are certain procedures also delinking it from the direct control of a central government, because that is the purpose, to have it that way. And insofar, we are very vigilant from our side, and I invite you to be very vigilant in this regard also, not that things go in the wrong direction. There are many other areas that are of importance. For instance, the land reform. We have welcomed that. And as you are a huge country, you can definitely, there is space for the bigger ones and for the smaller ones. But for the smaller farmers, they also need to be in a position to get cheap credits. And there is a program from the European, a recommendation from the European Union to do it in a way that also the small farmers get access to cheap credit, and not only the big ones. The purpose of the land reform should not be to make the rich ones even richer, but to give a broader size of farmers, also the smaller ones and medium size, a chance in a market. So these are issues, and I could continue. I mean, now you are on the process of customs reform, very necessary, and you will see the effect when on the income side for the budget, once the customs is really reformed and all these old structures who gained their profits there are eliminated because it functions well, you will see on the income side of the state budget a huge increase. So there in the customs area, you can really measure whether you're successful. There is the environmental sector. What we see, there are needs definitely to preserve the old forests in the Carpathian Mountains. There is a lot of illegal logging taking place. And the National Forest Administration, I would say, and especially their local branches, I would say some of them are part of the problem. And insofar to preserve it on the one hand, and on the other hand, to have sustainable use of that, and also to have sustainable tourism, but not these huge projects that are planned there. I think that is not sustainable. And also to dream of a Winter Olympics at the height that you have there is no snow guarantee anymore with the climate change. So I would rather focus in this area on sustainable forest management and also sustainable tourism, which will profit also many, many local hotels and providers of facilities, and not only some big companies, international companies, and certainly not those who are financed by Mr. Kolomoisky and consorts. I think I could go on and on through many areas of whether it's light and whether it's shadow, but overall, I would like to say, rest assured that we remain faithful and engaged with your reform process, because you will be, I'm pretty sure you are already a shining example how to deliver better than what citizens in Russia see from their governance. And that is why Mr. Putin is so afraid of a successful Ukraine. We are supporting a successful Ukraine to really be a shining example for a neighboring Russia, because also the Russian citizens deserve better than what this kleptocratic caste in the Kremlin and around are delivering to their people. So all the best on a good track for Ukraine, and we are looking forward to intensify our cooperation. And yeah, as I always say at the end, Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава.
Of its nature and purposes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. Well, first of all, our current agenda, and that is the implementation of the association and deep and comprehensive free trade agreement, that is already a huge agenda, and we are far from achieving the complete implementation. That is why we are, as we speak, we have, apart from the huge amount of projects, we have also this European Union administrative, this assistance or advisory mission, where we have altogether, we have hundreds of experts in the country in various reform areas. So that is already ongoing. We are also, of course, seeing when you look to the Crimea platform, we can of course not physically go there and have any activities. For the time being, I think it is good to support the international attention to the situation as such. Also to support, I mean, there are also from Crimea, not only from Donetsk and Lugansk, but also from Crimea, there are internally displaced people inside government-controlled areas. So we are supportive of these people as well. We have to see that the existing sanctions, which block all economic activities, be it investments of companies, be it deliveries of goods, and I'm aware of things that have been, so to say, channeled through Russia and Rostov, and then to plants in Crimea. So when our companies, I think Siemens was one of them, when they are blocking or ignoring the boycott, that must be scandalized. I mean, we must see to it that no cruise ships in the Black Sea from our side, that they stop in Yalta or in Sevastopol. So that is already something to watch that sanctions that have been imposed and that are existing, that they are actually followed. What we are also doing is, specifically the fate of the Crimean Tatars, with whom we are also in frequent contact. I think that is also important to make them aware that they are not alone and they are not left alone. I mean, Ukraine does a lot, but I think it is also for the international community to do that. Moreover, in general, I think we are looking at the way within the Eastern Partnership, where we have 3 of the 6 countries are more ambitious. That is Ukraine, that is Georgia, although we have, as we speak, quite some hiccups, and I'll be going to Georgia for the local elections in bit more than 2 weeks time, 3 weeks to see that. There are some hiccups, but in Moldova we have now a pro-European president and a pro-European parliament. I think we should undertake huge efforts to help this country, but overall the three associated countries who have this bigger, more ambitious agenda, we must and we will develop further areas of cooperation. I'm thinking of infrastructure, especially cross-border projects that interconnect the neighboring regions of the EU with the neighboring regions in Ukraine. So you have 4 countries that you are directly bordering. So that is certainly a lot that can be done. And as you are also a neighbor of Moldova, I think when we look from Romania, Moldova, Ukraine, we are aware of the problem of Transnistria, which is Russian occupied. But apart from that, I think any bigger infrastructure projects, road projects, rail, that can be developed together with Ukraine and Moldova more closely. This is and we should perhaps also see to extend a program of twinning, to enlarge the scope of town twinning, which has helped a lot. Also when we were having our enlargement to Central Europe, there have been the twin cities, they have been very active in exchanging information, and I think there is a huge potential still to connect many cities in Ukraine with cities in the European Union, and thereby exchanging expertise and things, and that can also be supported from the European Union side. So I think there are, I'm always, when I'm getting the question, but we have no formal confirmation that we are candidates. That is as such right, but I think it is better to work on the agenda that is to be fulfilled than to have any formal status. Because look at a country like Turkey. We made them a candidate at the beginning of the year 2000. We started negotiations with Turkey for accession on the 3rd of October 2005. And after now, since 2005, 16 years, this country is definitely further away from the European Union than it was in 2005. So even a formal status does not help when on the substance there is a regress, when the country goes in the wrong direction. So the other way around, even when there is no formal status yet granted for candidate, you can on the substance advance a lot and prepare for what should come in the future. And insofar, I would encourage you to grasp really all opportunities that are there, to make the best of it, and that gets the country forward and also makes you more attractive for us, so that also those who are not, so to say, the automatic friends of Ukraine are getting attentive and say, wow, there is a great country, there is a country with a potential, and not only a potential, but that is in a good shape. And at some point we would be crazy not to give you a real perspective and the process to accession. So that is my, shall I say, medium-term approach to definitely get you on a continuous track towards us, and eventually then at the end also to get you with us.
Some technologies.
Yes, yeah. No, definitely. I think human resources are already interesting in Europe. My Polish colleagues tell me there are almost, well, I don't know how many, but between 1 and 2 million Ukrainians are already apparently working in Poland and other countries as well. So that is something that is in our advantage. On the other hand, of course, for those concerned as well. But that is not yet, so to say, the normal free workers possibilities that we enjoy in the European Union. It's the human resources, indeed, already something profitable for us. Sometimes we fear that, especially experts, when it's doctors or engineers that are leaving, that is an advantage for us, but not so much for you. What is of interest is definitely also, I think, the IT sector and also the arms production. I mean, you have a huge armaments sector with real experts, excellent people, be it for aviation, be it for missiles. And I think we should step up our cooperation there before your experts are emigrating, be it to Russia or to China, to share their expertise. So I would very much welcome if our companies and also state bodies would embrace this arms sector in Ukraine in a way that we could profit also from your expertise in this sector. Then I think I already referred to the agricultural sector, where my approach, well, as I said earlier, you are so huge and you have such marvelous soil. There is a lot that can be used and be in a more productive way. And you have the chance, because of your size, to test it all. On the one hand, well, you have your own big people who own it. On the other hand, there are the small and medium size that we would support. And now is the decisive point. I think you are free, of course, to allow anyone from our countries, so to say, from your association countries in the EU, also to have a certain amount, to buy a certain amount of land. You are free to say you get 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 hectares. You can set a limitation or you can avoid a limitation. You are totally free. But the decisive point for me is the more Western owners you have who own land, agricultural land or other sites, the more the interest of these owners is that that is safe. Well, in blatantly saying safe from any Russian interference. And insofar, the advantage would be if you have many Western investors who own land and produce in Ukraine, that their influence towards their own governments to give Ukraine a better perspective also on membership in the EU, that this is growing. So the more you have of us in your country, the better the stance when it comes to such perspectives. And no foreigner can take any piece of land away home. It will always stay in Ukraine and be there. So I think for that purpose, you can have a very well calibrated reform process, getting our investors to your country and perhaps avoiding any fake, but at the end, Russian investors or even Chinese investors. I mean, the Chinese are coming in a very smart way, but at the end, they really only see their interest and long-term perspectives. And China is not one that is consolidating democracy or has an agenda of that. By far just the opposite. So I think the agricultural sector is a huge potential to get you closer to us when you arrange it wisely and diversify the ownership with many Western owners as well. And I think also a huge potential of cooperation is in the tourism area. I already indirectly referred to that. I mean, you are so huge, so beautiful landscapes and a long common border with 4 EU countries. Cross-border cooperation in this area, I think, is also a huge potential, as these are remote areas and not automatically strong with infrastructure. But if this tourism area is in a sustainable way developed, it can provide a lot of jobs to people. It can provide a lot of income to people because really many of your landscapes are unique. Not only the Carpathians, but also along the coastline, very wonderful, nature that you have. So there is really a broad scope of things where you are and can be of interest to us as well, and that should be thoroughly developed.
After leaving, yes. Thank you.
I definitely think the European orientation of Germany and the policies that the EU does, in the German case, it does not make a difference. Certainly not a substantial difference. I mean, to be honest, we have not, the German government has had problems not only with Ukraine, but also with Poland and the Baltic states over this infamous Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which has soured the relationship. And I'm one of those who is a staunch opponent, and together with the European Parliament, we have always been with a large majority against this project. And we are now looking that even when it is technically ready, that it cannot get started because it doesn't fulfill the requirements of the EU, the gas directive. There is no unbundling. Yeah, so it is, and the German authorizing authority that authorized this pipeline to be run gave it within the limits of the existing EU gas directive. Gazprom is opposing that and they are struggling, but I think they will not succeed. So they will have to find a way to unbundle the ownership of the gas and the pipeline. I think that will be independent of which German government. I would even say, in case the Greens would be part of a new coalition, I think they would even be harder on this, on the one hand, because they are, shall I say, a bit even tougher on Russia than the current German government, but they are also, for environmental reasons, very critical of this project. I mean, it has, it is built now, but it has disturbed the eco-life in the Baltic Sea a lot, but also the gas that is coming there. The question is whether it is really needed for a long time, because it's also at best a transitional technology or energy source on the way to a carbon-free energy supply. So overall, I think Ukraine has nothing to fear from a new German government, whatever the composition is. We are part of the European Union and the policy, and I would hope that, so to say, even the attention would become a bit bigger. Well, when I'm looking to the region that is closest to the EU, the Carpathian Mountains, I think such huge projects as they exist in Bukovel or where they are planned in Svidovets, I think this is the opposite of sustainable tourism. I think what is important is to provide the facilities for small hotel owners or others who provide tourist facilities, that they get access to cheap credits so that they can make a start. And then existing concepts of of sustainable tourism that exist on the EU side of the border that could systematically be shared and thereby sort of serve as good and functioning examples. As in your part of the Carpathians, there is so much to be discovered, and so much. So I think there is a lot that can be done. Other areas are, I think, riverside cruises. You have the Dnieper as a long river where people can make tours. You have the Black Sea coast with some very original sites. I mean, if you look at the Danube Delta, which is largely Romanian, but I mean, you have a part of that as well. There could be common projects be developed so that on both sides the tourists would have a look. And also what is west of Crimea, this area along the coastline is very original and I think breathtaking for many people who discover unspoiled land. I think there are enough hyper modern, huge centers of tourism existing all over the south of Europe. For that purpose, you need not come to Ukraine, but the specificities in that you have got in the landscape, in the mountains, could be hiking, and in the winter, that sustainable skiing, but not so to say logging huge parts of ancient forest and then having for a month or two some ski slopes where you can go down, and the rest of the year it's empty but the trees are gone. That is not the perspective that I see in large scale, but it is about providing income and work and for those who are living there, and also to provide really for many Europeans who have still to discover this area, to provide really positive surprises in a landscape that is largely untouched, but still providing on a small scale all the services that a normal tourist in Europe requires. But insofar, I would say small is beautiful, and then very diverse in the different villages and so on. I think there I can really imagine that this is a perspective for such an area like the Carpathians.
Дякую.